Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Hospitable Hosts podcast. Today we are speaking to Marisa Grover, who is going to tell us all about her experience hosting, setting up systems for other hosts, and leading a community of fellow short-term rental hosts as well. Let's get into it. Okay, hello Marisa. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Miles, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and be able to chat with you about all the things.
Awesome, cool. So let's get straight into it, Marisa. For those of you that don't know Marisa, Marissa's going to start with a bit of introduction on herself and explain a little bit more about Simply Stay as well. So Marisa, please take it away. Tell us a bit more about yourself and Simply Stay.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here. But yeah, I'm a host of about 50 properties in my local market. And that's what Simply Stay is. It's our property management company where we manage all of the details and things for property owners that don't want to deal with the guests and the chaos that come with that. I'm also a mom to two kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And so that's my full-time job, is giving them all the attention and fun that we can squeeze into every single day because they are little fun boys.
Nice.
But we also have a community online where we help hosts build systems and create workflows and automations and learn their tech stack and hire and train their teams. And so we really jump in and want to be a partner in those businesses while we're learning how to automate and systemize our businesses.
Nice, I like it. And on the community piece, like how big of a community were you talking? Who are the kind of people that are typically join that community? Maybe tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so our community is online. It's an online community where you can collaborate with other hosts, and then there's all the templates and SOPs and everything that I use in my business that you could just immediately adopt. The
Hmm.
people that generally join are people that are wanting to start property management companies or have growing property management companies. So generally, it's somebody with 5 or more listings that's starting to be like, okay, I want this to be a real business. I want to get it off the ground. I'm not entirely sure how to do it and where I start with systems. That's usually who fits in perfectly with our community because we have all the systems for them to adopt and tons of other hosts for them to connect. So it's a growing community. It has about 100 hosts in there now and continually every day more and more.
Sweet. And you briefly mentioned SOPs in there. Maybe you can just spell out that acronym and maybe explain it for us for those that don't know.
Yeah, good question. So SOPs are standard operating procedures. So this is anything that you do routinely in your business. So an SOP can be how to return a package to Amazon, or it could be how to optimize a listing or how to connect a listing to Hospitable. All of those things are SOPs. It's just a task-based document that shows you how to do a specific thing.
Cool. And obviously, you're working with short-term rental hosts at kind of all different stages. What do you see as kind of some of the most common operational pain points that happen in these real businesses?
Yeah, I think the biggest pain point that I see over and over is people trying to do everything themselves and thinking that they need to do everything themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, wearing all the hats, like trying to be the bookkeeper and trying to coordinate with the cleaner and trying to handle, the troubleshooting and the guest messages and the owner communication. That's a lot of things that one person is trying to manage. So, that's a big operational error. The second one that I see all the time is not having anything documented. So, even in this position, if you don't have anything documented and you hire someone, there's nothing for them to be able to refer to be able to take the workload off your plate, which is also very difficult.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like you've kind of alluded to it there, but where do you think most hosts start wrong when building those systems and those standard operating procedures?
Yeah, I think the first thing that goes wrong when you try and build is feeling, well, first of all, feeling overwhelmed. So I think everyone is like, "Oh, building systems is going to be so hard and take so much time." And it does take time, but I encourage everyone to just record what you're doing or talk through what you're doing already. You don't have to go out of your way or change your job or add more hours to your day. Just start writing down the things that you're doing today, and that can build your systems very slowly. So I think a lot of people just never start, which is a big problem. And the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I think is a problem here is people trying to copy somebody else's systems without taking into advice how big their team is and what workflows they're using and what hasn't worked in the past. And so I really like to coach people through this and talk through like, okay, here's a template you can use, go use this. But if that doesn't work for you, a system is something that you can follow, your team can follow, anyone that you hire can follow. It can be a training manual. So we want to make sure it's in words and phrases and documents that you're going to use and understand.
That makes sense. And obviously, the best practice and your advice would be, start building those systems today, start documenting today, kind of whatever size you're at, I guess. But what kind of point does it become non-negotiable that you have to have these systems in place? Do you think it's based on property count? Do you think it's based on number of team members? What point would you say that people have to have these systems and documentation in place for their business?
Yeah, I love this question. I think it's different for every person. I hate to say that, at a specific number account, that's the where you're going to break. What I like to tell everyone is it's based on your goals. So for me, I wanted to spend more time with my family and with my little kids. And so when it got to the point for me that I was being pulled away from my family, I was leaving birthday parties and dinner events, and I couldn't swim in the lazy river with my kids because I had to get out every lap to answer guest messages. That's when it was non-negotiable for me. I also was answering guest messages in labor with my second child. That was a breaking point for me when I realized this is not working. This should be a day off. No one should be talking to me today. Those are some things. So I think look at yourself and look at your goals. A lot of people, their goal is I want to make as much money as possible. I love that goal. I think that's a really important goal. But I think at what sacrifice are you willing to do that, right? Because we can hire people and you can make really good money early on without giving up your lifestyle. A lot of hosts work W-2. So if this starts cutting into your job that's paying you, then there's a breaking point. If it starts hurting your relationships or your marriage, or if you go to parties and the only thing that you can talk about at a party is hosting, that might be a breaking point for you. All of these I've experienced at some point. And so I think for everyone, you got to look at your goals and what did you want to be an entrepreneur for? And if it's freedom, if it's money, if it's travel, if it's vacation, if it, whatever that is, when those things become affected, that's when we need systems, or sooner. You don't want that to happen.
Nice, I like that. And so obviously that's kind of talking about, I guess, the cost of not having a system in place. Would love to understand what you think is maybe, the first operational system that maybe gives hosts that why didn't I do this sooner moment, wow, this is such a big benefit moment of doing this thing.
Yeah, I think at first when we think of systems, they feel very restrictive. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so time consuming, and it's just taking away all the things that I could be doing something else. But I think when you have systems and standard operating procedures in place, it becomes less restrictive and more freeing. And so we have to look at it like that. Like it's a cost now for a really, really high reward later. But a couple operating systems that I think give you that, like, why didn't I do this sooner moment is the first is get your phone number out of the business items as quickly as possible. So a lot of people have their phone number in the platforms like Airbnb, or they're giving their phone number to the cleaners, or they're giving their phone number to whoever, the homeowners, whoever you're working with. I would encourage you to take your personal number and make that only personal items, and then move your business, like the business items that are happening, into a business line or a business number. There's tons of apps that do this. There's tons of ways to do it, but that's the first thing. Because all of a sudden you can like sit down at your phone and not feel like that like scared feeling because you're like, oh, somebody needs me right now, right? The second thing that I think is really, really important is having one place to document all about every property. Because as you start to grow, someone's going to ask you, how do I work the thermostat at this house? And you're like, I don't even know where the thermostat is in that house. And so having a place where you can document everything about each individual house, they're all so different. So how the washer and dryer works, or where to park, or how the thermostat works, or if the ceiling fan is a light switch that you turn on or a remote that you have to keep close. Those type of details should all live in one sheet. And this specific sheet that I created for my team saved me 30 hours a week when I started building it right away, because they could answer the questions. They didn't need me to answer everyone's question.
That makes a lot of sense. And then just kind of thinking about obviously Hospitable as a software and a tool that can hopefully help those operations. At what point do you think that software actually does come in and start helping? Because I think that it's not always a case of software can't solve every problem, right? You need to have some operations and some systems in place first. Where do you think software sits in there, and the timing wise when it starts having a positive effect?
Yeah. I love this question because I think tools are an incredible and a super valuable resource as you grow.
Mm-hmm.
You need the tools. We have to rely on the tools and those softwares. Um, I think the problem here is hosts always think they need more softwares and more tools, and they end up underutilizing the ones that they actually have and trying to train a team on how to use lots of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, the softwares don't train your team on, how to change the HVAC filter. They don't do that, right? That's not their job. And the softwares don't, clean up dog poop in the backyard when a guest forgets. So those are things that you really need systems for, and that you need to understand your values and your structure for those things. So once you come up with your company standards, so what I mean by this is company standards, like we provide 5-star hospitality, we respond in 5 minutes or less, or whatever those KPIs that you as a business have, it's a lot easier to create your systems then and then have your software support your systems, right? Because you can teach your team, this is the standard that we have all the, we never have any trash under the beds, or when the cleaners go in, or none of our sheets have stains on them. Whatever that is for you, you can go and create the expectations and standards around that, and then use your softwares to schedule your cleaners, to pay your cleaners, to interact with your cleaners. But the standards don't change, even if the softwares might.
Cool, that makes a lot of sense. And then obviously, staying on the hospitable topic, I hear that hospitable comes up a lot in your community. Why do you think it's become such a foundational tool for some of the serious operators in your community?
Yeah, I love this question. Every host that we work with that's on a different platform, we always encourage them to switch to Hospitable, and a lot of them do.
Good.
It's so much easier. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Hospital is so much easier. I personally have worked with 3 different property management softwares over the years and have transitioned. And like I said, we work with hosts that have other ones. It's just so much easier. There's so much more that it can do than other property management softwares. But I think what really comes down to, and what I always tell everyone, is Hospitable is like an iPhone, right? And it's like the simple software that an iPhone carries versus an Android that you can customize and do all these elaborate things with. But a lot of people don't need an Android and don't want an Android. They just want a phone that they know that is going to be reliable and works every time. And that's how I feel Hospitable is. It's this reliable software that you can train people on. So my favorite things about Hospitable, I'll just share, is that it has an app. That is super, super helpful for hosts like me that are on the go. Like, even if I'm at the park with my kids and I need to check something, I don't have to whip out a laptop in the middle of, this field of grass. I love that we can integrate our locks through Hospitable. A mistake that I see a lot of hosts making around locks is they have like a bazillion different types of locks, and every home has a different lock that they're trying to adapt. So I would say, if that's you, get all the homes, as many as you can, on one type of lock and link those all to Hospitable. And then you only have to manage one software in this area. We love the guest communication suggested replies. Sometimes guests are difficult and we want to say things the nicest way possible, but like the words don't come out the way that we intend. And so it's nice to have AI in there to be able to rework some of the thoughts and feelings that we're having. I love the metrics and reporting. This is something that I track every single month to see, am I on par compared to last year? How is this house performing? How is the whole portfolio performing? That has been super nice, and I haven't seen another software with something as simple to use and as functional. But yeah, like I said, we love Hospital. In fact, I got this message yesterday I want to share with you. It says, this is a quote. She said, "Your help to transition to Hospitable has saved us so much time and stress." That was another operator with 15 properties in California.
Amazing. And so obviously you kind of talked there about the simplicity of use and being iPhone versus Android. you must see some hosts that have maybe got started in Hospitable and made some mistakes though. What would you say are some kind of common setup mistakes that you see people making in terms of how to best optimize the tool, and how do you think that hosts can avoid that?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake is having a billion locks, like having and a lot of hosts still are driving to properties after every guest checks out and reprogramming the code and then driving home. You don't have to do that. There is a better way. I promise there's a better way. So that's one of the things. The other challenge that I'm not entirely sure that I can solve for anybody is connecting to Verbo is always a challenge for anyone moving to Hospitable and to any property management software, not just Hospitable. But going into it, I would set aside some time to work with Hospital support and Verbo to make sure you're prepared for that transition and ready to move forward. Another thing that I see happen a lot that would be really helpful is muting properties that you're not using. Sometimes hosts are overpaying because an owner has multiple properties or an account has multiple properties and they're not actually managing those. So you have an ability to mute something, essentially to turn it off from your account so you don't see it and you don't get billed for it. So that's really helpful. And then the last thing that's super, super helpful is Hospitable has a lot of partnerships and connections with other softwares, and people don't utilize those enough, in my opinion. My favorite is Turno. Hospitable has a partnership with Turno. And so that makes the communication with your cleaners really, really seamless. And it's not something that you have to go out and pay extra for. It's already built into your subscription, depending on what plan you're on.
Cool. Yeah. And just on that, Turno, yeah, it's actually free, whatever plan you're on. The subscription to Turno is free. Obviously, you still need to pay cleaners, but the software subscription, is free if you're connected to your Hospitable account, whatever plan you're on.
Yeah, and Turno's usually like $8 a month per property or so. And so, I have 50 properties, 8 times 50, that adds up, right? And to just be able to have that in my property management software and utilize that, it's no extra money and a lot of lift off my shoulders for that connection.
Nice, yeah. And then just kind of going back towards the start, you kind of talked about, a lot of people joining the community as hosts that are scaling. What do you commonly see as, a thing that breaks as hosts go from, say, 5 properties to like 20 plus?
So I think the breaking point when you're scaling from 5 to 20 or any number, any substantial growth, I think the breaking point starts to look like some signs of that is things start slipping through the cracks that didn't used to slip through the cracks. An owner stays, for example, an owner stayed and left and you forgot to send the cleaner after the owner stay. Those types of things that wouldn't normally be missed are starting to be missed because you have so much information in your brain that it can be really, really hard to remember all of the details, right? When you're the solopreneur, essentially. For me, the breaking point, and I think a lot of hosts, it looks like this too, is when you start to have the thoughts of, do I even want to do this? Do I even want this business? This feels like a lot of work and not a lot of reward, right? Or when you start comparing yourself to other hosts. And comparing is a really good thing. Like, we want to see other people's growth, but when you're comparing at the detriment of your own business, like, oh, I wish my business looked like that, or oh, I want to be her or him, or they're living their life and I'm stuck managing all these properties. Even if you're doing it subconsciously, that can be really hard because I find that when those thoughts start creeping in, hosts tend to back off a little bit and shut down a little bit and aren't as present as they used to be. And so those are the early signs of, growing too fast. I think so many people want to add more and more and more and more properties, but we have to remember we don't want to scale faster than we can sustain or support.
Of course, that makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Cool. So we're going to shift gears slightly now, and I'm going to give you some quick fire questions, okay? So try and keep it short. First thing that comes to your mind, and we'll just kind of fire through these nice and quick, okay? Ready? Good, okay. So number 1, what's the biggest silent killer of short-term rental businesses?
Burnout.
Nice. What's one SOP every host should document first?
I think having a master sheet where all of the information is kept on all properties is a huge time saver.
Awesome. What's an ops task hosts waste the most time on?
Messaging, guest messages.
Cool. What's the earliest sign a host is heading for burnout?
I think doing everything yourself, doing everything and thinking I am the only person that is capable of doing this thing, or that it has to be perfect. And so I have to do it every single time. Those are the signs that are going to lead to burnout, or that somebody is getting burned out.
Nice. That and messaging guests when you're in labor, maybe.
Not my best move, I will admit. But I didn't have any VAs yet. It was just me, right?
There you go. There you go. Okay. What's the most overrated metric hosts obsess over?
Occupancy rate.
Interesting. What's a green flag that tells you a host will scale well?
Mindset is a big one here. When someone starts to see themselves as the business owner and rather as a solopreneur, that's when you really know that the wheels are turning and they'll be able to scale really well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. What's one hospitable feature your power users rave about?
We love the AI generated responses. Even it will generate a response for you and smooth out some of your responses, which is really awesome.
Nice. What's the fastest win a new Hospitable user can get in week 1?
The time that you save with a simpler software. I mean, every person that we transition to Hospitable will just tell us, like, we have saved so much time by using the software than our others when we were digging through things and trying to find things. So I think that's a big one.
Cool. And then just 2 more questions. What's a mistake hosts make before they even log into Hospitable?
Jumping in without documenting the process. You could make a Loom video of everything when you're turning on Hospitable, and it could show you everything for a team member to do down the road.
Nice. And what's one piece of advice you wish every new shops and rental operator heard on day 1?
Good question. The one piece of advice I think I wish every operator took from day 1 is to join a community. It doesn't have to be mine. It doesn't have to be any specific one. But the biggest hack that I can tell you is put yourself in a room of other people that are like you, that want to grow like you, that want to scale like you, and that are doing what you're doing. So many people aren't doing that. Like they're just trying to do it by themselves. And that's the slowest way to growth. When there's a faster, easier, more sustainable way, join a community. You will learn so much more and have a bigger network than you possibly can imagine right now.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. One final very easy question for you, Marisa. Maybe tell us a bit more about your plans for 2026 for Simply Stay, for the community, and also where listeners can go and learn more.
Yeah, good question. So we are working super hard in 2026 to give hosts actual systems that they can take and apply into their business. So that really comes down to the community. There's a lot of communities out there for systems and teaching you how to be a host that are really, really expensive. And it makes it hard to find that barrier of entry as a host. You're like, I just want help and support, but I don't want to have to sell a kidney to get there. Right. And that's how I felt years ago. It's just like, I don't even know where to turn. So we wanted to create something that was very, very affordable, but also gave people actual, tangible, take this home and do it, and it will make a difference in your business today help. So that's where our focus is on in 2026, is creating streamlined approaches to helping hosts get systems and get out of the day-to-day weeds of their business. But if you want to connect more and hang out with me, I'm active on Instagram. So come chat, send me a DM, ask me a question about something that's not working in your business, and I'd love to work through that with you. Just over Instagram, and we can connect there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll drop some links in the show notes as well to chat with Marisa. Thank you so much, Marisa.
You so much thanks for having me and sharing your wisdom.
Awesome. No, likewise. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Hospitable Hosts podcast with me, Miles, and our guest, Marisa. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to listen out to a new episode dropping soon. Thanks again.